Just recapping, the other thing we talked about was you have to pick a band name, or at least have some suggestions. If you want to bring in people and say, pick between these names, at least have suggestions or a direction where you want to go. You want to think about the logo and what that would look like, because that's a visual representation of your brand. We also said you want to think about why you're starting the band. And you want to also set up a few preliminary things, like think about how you'll do your accounts, think about the contracts that you'll have. Okay, let's jump into the next thing. Now you're setting up your band. For this, I have 5 R's. 5 R's of setting up a band. Trademark Laka 2022. So you want to think about, I'm going to summarize it this way: roles, you want to think about rehearsals, you want to think about repertoire, you want to think about revenue, and you want to think about remuneration. Should I say it again? Yes? Okay, here they are. Roles, what are they? 5 R's of setting up a band. Roles, you want to think about rehearsals, repertoire, revenue, and remuneration. Let's jump in. So for roles, what I mean is, you want to think about the people who you're bringing into the band, or the people who are making up the band, and what they're doing, okay? Let's talk about the people for a minute. So as I mentioned before, you want people who are skilled at their given role. If you're bringing in a singer, you want to bring someone who is skilled. If you're bringing in a guitar player, you want to bring someone who is good at playing the guitar. So when you're picking out your team, you want to think about their skill level. So are they good at what they're doing? Are they proficient in their instrument, or in their, in their singing, in their voices, whatever they're doing? Are they a utility sort of deal? So is it someone who can play both bass guitar and electric guitar? Or is it someone who can play, woodwind instruments, so flute, clarinet, saxophone, all of those instruments? Or is it somebody who maybe needs just a bit of that shift? Maybe they're from a classical background and now you need them to play jazz. Is that someone who can make the jump, or are they too stuck in that classical format? So you want to think about the skill level for sure. The other thing you want to think about is their look. Surprisingly, especially if you're a live musician, you want the look of the band a certain way. I mean, this is not for everybody, but there are those people who how the band looks is extremely important. I was reading a book about Prince, or the artist formerly known as Prince, and this guy was like super specific about what he wanted and the people he wanted in his band. It came down to the color of their skin. I mean, of course, having skill as the base level, everybody is talented, blah, 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 you can play the music. He'll look at the skin color, he'll look at the gender, he'll look at, how you look, if you're in, let me call it, he'll look at your shape. Let me not say that some people are in shape and some are out of shape. Shape yako ni shape yako. Uipende ilivyo vilivyo. And like, he had such a specific vision of what the band would look like. So there are people who auditioned for his band and they didn't get in because you're a guy and he wants ladies, or you don't get in because you're a lady but you have blonde hair and he wants someone with red hair. It was that crazy. So again, going back to specifics and going back to what I'll keep on talking about throughout this masterclass, clarity is kindness. So if you can think about some of these things beforehand, it'll save you a lot of time when now you're trying to pick your team. The other thing that you're thinking about, so we've talked about skill level, we've talked about the look, now we're going to talk about discipline. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't want divas. I mean, they can be, hard to deal with. I mean, if you have a diva who is good at what they're doing, they're particular, and maybe the divaness is just because things are not going or are not clear, then, I mean, that comes now down to you to be clear. But if it's someone who just wants to stir up trouble and wants to be the center of attention, just pass them on to the next band, really. You don't want that kind of headache. So you need someone who's disciplined, people who will show up to rehearsal on time, people who will show up to the venue on time, people who will speak to your clients in a good way or in an appropriate manner. There are many band leaders I've talked to out here who say that they lost a job because one of their band members, when you go for a gig and there's an open bar and you're like, holla, the alcohol is free. And they drink too much, they start talking anyhowly. Anyhowly is a Kenyan English word. They start talking anyhowly to all the clients. And kuna mwingine hata anatukana client, or you find someone is trying to now carry alcohol and take it home, or carry the food that is there. Hey, wadau, please. Let's respect ourselves and let's respect the profession. And a word on that, now that we're talking about food. As a band member, especially kama ni mtu wa kucheza kwa hotels, anza kuzoea. Vile atoli alikuwa anasema, zoea hiyo sauti, zoea hiyo chakula. Because, I mean, there's a lot of food. And if you go there thinking, I have to eat everything all the time, hey, my guy, you utaumia. Either it will be indigestion, or it will be, if you're unfortunate, food poisoning, or just something that doesn't agree with your stomach. I know some people who say, kula yenye utapata nyumbani, but really just eat what you're comfortable with, okay? Kama umezoea ugali, endelea tu kukula ugali. Usiende ukule sijui, what can I think of? Ratatouille, and then ikuharibikie.
I can't tell you though. Jamani wako mwana, come to my dunia.
So the other thing about rehearsals is that they need to be regular. I mean, it would be best if they were regular. Whether you're meeting once a month, whether you're meeting once a week, whether you're meeting 2-3 times a week, try and make rehearsals a regular practice so that you guys get into the groove of that, of meeting together. Or whether if you're a special group that just meets before a performance, maybe then you have it set that before every performance we'll meet at least 5 or 6 times. We'll have 5 or 6 rehearsals before a performance, or maybe if you're super steros, you'll just have 1 rehearsal before the performance. Mnakuja tu mnasema tunacheza ngoma gani? Anyway. So rehearsals are extremely important. The other thing to mention with rehearsals is gear, okay? So a lot of rehearsal spaces in Nairobi will have everything that you need. They'll have the drums, they'll have, this one even has like bongos and congas. They'll have the keyboards, the guitars, that sort of setup. There are other instruments that are more personal, like if you're talking about your flutes, clarinets, saxophones, that kind of things, which are like woodwind, so they are more personal. If you have bagpipes, I don't think you'll find bagpipes in any rehearsal space. If there's a rehearsal space that has bagpipes, please call me. I would really love to come and play the bagpipes. But yeah, there's what we call the band instruments, which is the bass guitar, the drums, the keyboard, and the electric guitar or acoustic guitar or semi-acoustic guitar. Most rehearsal spaces will have at least those. So you want to make sure rehearsals are regular, and you want to make sure that rehearsals are well kitted. And by well kitted, I mean you have the instruments that you need so that everybody is occupied. I've been in bands where, especially when you're starting out and younger, where you have a drummer, but there are no drums. So you come to rehearsal and he's ako hapo tu. Anacheza tu hapa kwa mapaja, ama anacheza na sufuria or whatever it is. So it's important that everybody is occupied at rehearsal. So that then everyone feels like they're contributing, that their time is being well taken care of. They're not coming to sort of just bangaiza or whatever it is. Okay, so rehearsals need to be regular. They need to be planned ahead of time, and the music sent ahead of time. They need to be well kitted. Meet in a place that has the instruments that you need, whether that's at home or whether that's in church or at a rehearsal space, or even in Uhuru Park. Us used to meet in Uhuru Park or Central Park or up on Alliance, because at that time, really, all we needed to make music was just a song in our heart and a guitar or whatever it is. And yeah, so as long as everyone is occupied in some way, nobody is feeling like they're wasted, the rehearsals are regular, you should be good to go. Let's move on to the next R.
You guys are gonna clap a lot today, yeah? There's a lot of good.
So the next R, when you're putting together your band, is your repertoire. And repertoire is just a fancy schmancy French word for the songs that you perform. So there are bands in Kenya, especially, again, now this goes back to what type of music that you want to do. If you're doing original music, your repertoire will consist of your music and maybe covers of songs that sound like your music. It's very important. So you don't want to be an Afro jazz band and you're doing covers of rock music, because then that creates some dissonance. You want to do Afro jazz and then now maybe do covers of other Afro jazz artists. And this, again, something important to do in rehearsal. Even if you're doing original music, cover or rehearse music that sounds like yours, because there's a lot that you can learn from other musicians who have gone ahead of you. Okay, so now we're in the place where we look at repertoire. You want at least, a good chunk of music. If you're playing in like hotels and stuff, and it's like those ones where you're playing 3 hours, you want, I'd say 3 hours of music is maybe about 40 songs. Is that 40 songs? Maybe? Or so? Something like that, or 50 songs. Actually, yeah, maybe about 50, 60 songs. So you want to have at least 50 to even up to 200 or even 1,000 songs. So someone like Jacob Asio, who I used to watch a lot, I'd go to at cafe and order the cheapest things. One day I ordered, niliona, espresso ni 180. And then ikakuja kwa kikombe inatoshana hivi. Nililia. I was like, how am I going to sip this thing for 3 hours? In fact, even the waiters used to know me. Walikuwa, kijana. Then one day Bob Collymore came and he bought me a coffee. Yeah, rest in peace, man. So anyway, what was I saying? Jacob Asio has a huge repertoire of now jazz music and subgenres of jazz and Latin music. So if you go to his Latin performance, I think it's at Art Cafe Westgate on Thursdays. You'll correct me. I was going to say collect in the comments. Comment in the comments if you know that show. But if you go to his salsa weekly show, he never repeats a song. In the however many hours he'll play, he won't repeat a song. And even maybe week to week, he won't repeat a song because he has so much music, and his band, like, they know the music, to the finest detail. So when you're thinking about repertoire, think about the music that you want to play, not only the one that you want to perform, but also the music that you're using to learn from, to draw lessons from and such, and also music that can blend and sound like what you do or what your primary thing is. Of course, church musicians, shout out. This will be a lot of church music. Yeah, maybe you don't want to be practicing R&B songs in church, maybe. Otherwise, what was, I've forgotten the example. I've forgotten. Or done for, this is the air I breathe, your holy presence living in me, and I will always love you, Jesus. Anyway, so you want to make sure that you're sticking to your genre that you had already predetermined. Okay, let's move on to the next R. We've talked about roles, we've talked about rehearsals, and now we've talked about repertoire. The fourth R is your revenue. So especially, maybe this is more so for the pro bands, you want to think about how you're gonna make money, and it's not necessarily just from your music, okay? Of course, the primary way in Kenya that musicians make money is from live performance. And church musicians, you too. If you're playing in church and you get paid for it, that is live performance. I've said it, performance. Anyway, so live performance is one of the primary ways musicians make money. The other one is merchandise. As you can see, we have hoodies that we sell. We also have t-shirts. I would have shown you, but then kuna microphone na nini zinaingia hapo ndani. But anyway, we have, merchandise that we sell. If you want to find out more about our merchandise, go to shamsi.hustlesasa.shop, and you'll see what we have there. Maybe you can pick a few ideas from there. Other revenue sources are even just business. The band Kaskazini used to sell honey. What else is there? Like there's a lot of musicians who have side hustles and do other things to support the music that are more, I guess, regular. So you want to think about the revenue and how you're making money, how much money you're making, what you charge for your performances. So as you think about revenue, you also want to think about how much you're charging. There are different charging models or different ways that bands charge. Maybe you want to think about, okay, everybody has to make X amount, multiply by the number of people, put a bit on top, very important, put a bit on top that will remain in the band account, that will now pay for stuff like rehearsals, pay for stuff like recordings, if there's like uniforms or whatever such things. Anything that, you don't want people to cater at a personal level, the band should be able to cover that for themselves. Social media, all those things. So maybe that's the model that you use, or maybe your model is, this is the number, 1 million, and then all those other things sort out themselves from there on. But of course, you want to charge according also to your ability, your skill, etc., and your experience. Bands that are more experienced, I would urge you to charge a bit better than the newbies. Newbies, you can charge base level, but please do not undercut. Undercutting is one of the things that ruins our industry, because you will come in, you said maybe you've charged a company 150K, and you say, I'm charge 150K, hizo pesa zote ni za nini? I'll charge you 90,000. And you are just shooting yourself in the foot, because for most companies, they look at you and say, 90,000. And they'll never increase that for as long as you work with them. Even if you are growing and developing and you're adding gear to your whatever, you're buying things, assets for your company that cost stuff. So think about the revenue. Let's move on to the next R, and the next R finally is remuneration. So when you think about remuneration, you think about how to motivate your team and how to pay your team. One of the things that I learned in, just leadership is you want to learn everybody's currency. And by currency, I don't necessarily mean ati shillings, ama dollars, ama dirhams, or whatever it is. but what is that? What's the thing that these people feel fulfilled when they get that? So one time when I was leading a group and I had interns, for the interns, their currency was just the exposure to the industry. It was the mentorship. It was the, that instruction and step by step, just building them up. So when I was leading that team, then, you look at the interns and their currency could be, apart from money, because it's basically, when you think about the currency, it's why are these people there? It could be money, it could be the exposure, it could be the friendship and the camaraderie, it could be the experiences. So if maybe you're in a band that plays, like I was saying, maybe you play at a very nice hotel where they know at least, huku nikienda, niko sorted, I'll eat very well, you eat and cover for breakfast, lunch, supper, and the next day breakfast. Maybe that's their currency. Maybe the currency is, like I was saying, experiences, because maybe your band travels a lot or goes out of the country, and that's something that is, a feather in their cap. So think about your team. Money is not always the biggest motivation, to be honest. Maybe somebody just wants to be in a team where when people are in their free time, they're wanajengana, they're talking about investments, they're talking about serious things and family, or maybe it's just that this team is family oriented. So, people, someone will understand when you say, oh, my child is sick or whatever, it's not like, kuja ama hii gigi meenda. And you're able to support each other in that way. Or maybe you're a very firm believer, and not that not firm believers don't believe in this, but maybe you just want a team where the jokes are clean, people come and they're disciplined and they do the work, and that could be your currency, okay? So when you think about remuneration, think about how do I motivate my team on the day-to-day? How do I keep them motivated and going? As well as how do I pay my team? So in terms of payment, how much are you paying them? How do you pay them? Is it by check? Is it by M-Pesa? Is it by, I don't know, maybe you pay them with bags of unga, or I don't know. You also want to think about you want to think about how do I pay them normally? And then if there's a special occasion or special circumstance, companies have like bonuses or stuff like that. How do I, distribute that? Also, you want to think about if you're a recording band, is your team getting royalties as well, or do all the royalties go to you because you're the one chucking the money? I don't know. Think about that. All right, so we're done with the 5 R's. That's roles, where we've said, to recap quickly, roles, you want to think about your team, you want to think about your gear. Rehearsals, you want rehearsals to be regular and in a place that has everything that you need. You want, what's the 3rd R? Repertoire. You want to have a very extensive list of music that you can play. And if you're genre specific, it has to be within the genre that you're playing in. And then the 4th R is revenue. You want to think about how you're making money as a band. If that's your thing, if you're doing it for free, that's cool. I was once in a band called Soul Syndicate, where, let me finish. The 5th R is remuneration. So back to my story. Remuneration, how are you motivating and paying your team? So as I was saying, I was in a band called Soul Syndicate, and these are, it was a bunch of wazungus. If you're watching this, hey guys, who used to come together. It's that whole thing for, I hear you used to play guitar back in the day, you used to play piano, blah, blah, blah. Let's come together and sing those songs. So they used to sing like 70s rock music. And me, I was there playing the saxophone. And one of my motivations was just to be around these guys, because I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is new music as well. And they'd pay for us to go to rehearsal and pay us when we perform. And one day we went to perform somewhere, and they hawakutoa pesa mzuri. So the leader was just like, it's okay, my share, you guys just split it. And I was like, what do you mean we split your share? He's like, me, I'm really just here for the music and the beer. So I'm good. If the money is important, you take it. He already had a nice big cushy job somewhere else. So 10K haitamuumiza sana. In fact, maybe that's what he'll spend on the night. So we've talked about the 5 R's. Now, we've covered what to do before you start the band. We've covered now what to do when you're starting the band, putting together the band. Those are the 5 R's. And now we're going to go into some of the paperwork to make your paper work. Huh?